am writing and illustrating my first kid's book, and today I am preparing to paint the first page, but I wanted to show you how I stretch my paper in preparation for painting. Now, stretching watercolor before you paint is essential when using large sheets of paper. Otherwise, you're going to have warping and pooling of your paint, which isn't ideal. So first off, you're going to want to tape one edge. These borders are pretty large, and I should have used a wider masking tape, but I used what I have, so I just go with it. Now, you want to make sure that the paper is flat and doesn't have any trapped air pockets underneath before you paint the rest of the sides. So proceed taping each of the sides like you did the first one. And I drew all my designs digitally and then printed them onto this watercolor paper, and my printer printed these crooked, and hence why the tape seems a little lopsided, but I did use printed crop lines as guides. Now grab some water and a flat brush. This would have been easier if I had a larger brush, but like I said, I use what I have. I'm not used to painting on a larger scale, so all my brushes tend to be on the smaller side. Start by brushing the water in one direction, not enough to have the water pool with puddles, but enough to properly wet the paper. You're also going to want to go in again, painting in the other direction. And if you drop down at an angle and look at the paper, you should see that the paper is entirely wet with no puddles or pooling. And if you were to paint without stretching the paper first, you would get these natural pools in these valleys, causing effects that you don't really want when it's dried, and hence why we stretch watercolor paper before we paint. Lastly, I'm going in with the hairdryer. I'm going to dry this completely. This should take a couple minutes. I think it took me about 5. And as it's drying, you're going to notice that the paper is flattening and tightening as you go. And this is exactly what you want. And if your paper is not dry, it's going to feel cool to the touch, which means you need to dry it a bit more. It needs to be bone dry. The heat from the hairdryer actually started lifting the masking tape a tad. You can see these little bubbles. So I go around the edges again and smooth the tape out, making sure it's securely attached. And that, my friends, is how I stretch my watercolor paper, and it is ready to paint.